Why are you doing all this now?
Go ahead.
I mean,
All right.
instead of,
Good morning,
Proceed.
this is Vivian Miller at Elieen Nemoitin's apartment at the Atria. We're interviewing Elieen for our oral history collection, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about her. Today is November the 29th, 2011. Good morning, Elieen. I'll take
Good
this from
morning.
you. You see that? Okay, that was easy.
how are you?
I'm fine, and you today? You're good. You're
Good.
looking good. I like the way you
Good.
combed your hair and everything else. Okay. Elieen, can you tell us a little bit about your background, for example, when your grandparents came and how they arrived here and where they settled?
Well, I don't know anything definite.
Okay, well, tell us what you do know.
Didn't discuss it in those days.
Okay.
All I know is they came from Germany. Some came through Canada and Wisconsin down to Illinois. Some of them came the way most of them did. And that's about all I know. I don't know what name they came under. I have no idea.
That was your father's parents or your mother's?
Well, both, I guess.
Both. Okay. And they settled on a farm, right? Your father and mother farmed. You were brought up on a farm.
Yes, but the story is that my uncle, my mother's brother, was the country doctor. And he was still single, so my grandmother thought she should come to Manere from Petersburg to take care of him. And I guess my father got in somehow or other, and that's it.
Very good. Now, when you went to school, what was your schooling like?
Very interesting. We were about a mile from a country school in those days, back in the dark ages, and they decided I wasn't learning.
Who decided, your mother and
So
father?
they transferred especially my father. He didn't like the teacher, and so it really wasn't that good, I guess. But anyway, he made an application to go to the elementary school in this little village, which I did.
Okay. How did you get there?
Sometimes on roller skates, and sometimes there was a gentleman that took the mail from the little village to another village that was larger,
Okay.
and I could ride with him. He was certainly he'd go the main road, and I could be there.
What was the name of the village, do you remember?
The what?
What was the name of the village that where the school was?
So the school was Armington,
Okay, Arlington, Illinois.
Mington,
Okay.
and the other village was Minare, Minier.
Okay, and
This is all in central Illinois.
you went there through all of the elementary school?
I
Not high
went to the
school.
elementary school in Armington.
Okay, what about high school?
I went there when the third grade
Okay.
on. I graduated when we reached the 7th and 8th grade for exams. We get the sheets from the county superintendent, and we had to answer under the supervision of our principal. But the questions didn't come from the school, it came from the superintendent. It made it harder.
Okay.
And I graduated there, the 8th grade, and then I went to 4 years of high school,
Where was that, in the same town or a different town?
same time.
Same town. Now, when you graduated from high school, what made you decide to go into medicine or nursing?
Well, 2 uncles and the parents and a friend Not
Okay.
my friend, their
Oh,
friend.
their friends.
They decided what I was going to do.
And you were happy with that decision?
I didn't have much of a choice.
All right. Why? It sounds like me. I didn't choose either.
No, it was a matter of, I had to do something.
Okay.
And my father said, one way or the other, you ought to have to do it. So I did it.
But you must have had an aptitude for science, because to become a nurse, you have to
I
have,
don't know about that.
you did well in
But
it.
anyway, they advised me to go 2 years to college and then go to hospital training.
Mhm.
Well, I wanted to go to Chicago. No, you can't go. It's too far away, 150 miles. But anyway, they found this Methodist Hospital of Central Illinois in Peoria, of all places. And that had a good rating,
Mhm.
so that's how I ended up there.
And after you finished your nurse's training, you went into the Army.
I finished the nurse's training September 5th, 1942. And I had a semester of Illinois Wesleyan to finish, which I was doing. And January 29th, 1943, there were 50 of us from the university were graduating because we were going to the service. And on the 29th, we got their degrees. February 1st, I was on my way to Chicago.
Okay, now when did you get to your next post when you were in the Army?
Oh, there was a hospital in the south part of Chicago, but it was a hotel
Mhm.
that they had converted to a hospital. And that's where I went. It was the U.S. Army Technical Training stuff. That was in Chicago. Went there in a month and a half. I was transferred to Fort Dix,
Oh, Fort Dix right here in New
New
Jersey.
Jersey.
Okay.
Don't bother the phone.
And then from there you went overseas.
No, from
1 minute. Eileen, I forgot to ask you before, what did your father raise on the farm?
animals.
Like what? What kind of, you mean
No.
cattle or?
There was horses, cattle, sheep, hogs, I guess you call it.
Okay,
That's it.
okay, but so he didn't raise grain or wheat or any of that stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he did
That
too.
had to be, we had corn, oats, and rye for hay. And that was all grown on the farm for the animals. Otherwise, you'd have to go out and buy it, which happened during the Depression,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a bad time.
Now, I know that you had
But
chores.
we had the big horses like the beer dog horses.
Oh, the ones who carried the beer
Big
wagon.
like that.
Right,
Clydesdale.
Percherons.
the Percherons, right.
The Belgian-
Clydesdale.
The Belgian dray horse.
Belgian.
The Belgian dray horse, right, right. Okay. And so you knew how to ride horseback riding? You knew all about that? Or you could? Oh, okay.
I could walk among those big horses, call them by name, and have no trouble.
That's fantastic.
They were very good. And then we used to have the foals born in springtime, and we'd have a yard full of about 4 or 5 running around. Very cute too, fun to play with.
You had a very
And
interesting
then
childhood.
we had sheep, we had lambs in the spring, and cattle anytime.
Okay. And you helped at the farm? You helped your dad? That was your chore?
That was the days that they had horses that did all the work, no tractors yet.
Mhm.
And I learned how to handle them under
Interesting.
supervision from my father, which was good because I soon caught up.
Okay.
And that's it.
But that's very interesting. I'm glad I did
Well,
remember to ask
actually,
you
the
that.
sheep were raised for their wool.
So who did the
There's
shearing?
someone that would come around in the springtime and do the shearing, take all the
The wool.
wool and sell it.
You had a very interesting childhood.
Oh yes, I wouldn't mind living again.
Well, next time around.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'll get back. I'll jump ahead a few years. Last time we spoke was when you went to Fort Dix, before you were shipped overseas.
Fort Dix, we went back to Camp Atterbury, Indiana, near Indianapolis, for further Army training.
Okay.
And we had to call from one trench to another, crawl low, because then they lowered the shooting.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we got through that, and from Camp Atterbury, Indiana, we went to Camp Shanks, New York. And from there, we got on the boat, the big ship.
Do you remember the name of the ship?
For entertainment, we had the comedian Martha Ray.
Mm-hmm.
That was not great to send off, but we took off about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, Sunday night. And we went the northern route to Scotland.
What was the name of the ship? Do you
Unescorted, we had
remember?
no protection.
Oh.
What year was that?
What year? 1943?
43. That would be, I think it was about September 43, from what I can figure out.
So you
because
had no
everything was
protection?
undercover.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to go across the Atlantic
10 days,
with no protection?
no protection. The 9th day out, we were attacked by a German plane. And we had big guns on our boat. And they replied back, and it left. And then we had to worry about it coming back.
Mm-hmm.
But the weather was with us because the fog closed in and they couldn't find us. So we made it to Scotland.
Okay.
And from Scotland, we took a train down to, I guess it was Redgrave or Disk. It was a village about 40 or 50 miles from London, north of London.
And what was this, a hospital, or did you have to set up a
No,
hospital?
we set up our hospital, station hospital, and we were surrounded by plane groups. There were B-17s, was it B-24?
B-24s.
Yeah, 24.
The two big ones,
Mm-hmm.
and we had two fighter groups, which were single pilots,
Mm-hmm.
and that was, and then we were there when the end of the war came.
Did
I
you,
knew when we were having VE Day in June.
right, June 2nd.
Casualties came in.
The casualties came in, and
One of my good card playing friends was Jimmy Stewart.
tell us a little bit about Jimmy Stewart.
He was funny. Well, the main thing, he could play cribbage, and I had trouble with it. So he had a good time. And it was, what was the song? Don't Fence Me In.
Right.
Was popular in the States. And he would go around singing that all the time, no matter where he was, that's what he was singing. But he was a nice, very nice person.
Now, after you saw the injured airmen, did they go to another hospital, or?
Well, actually, it started out, we get cases. There was a field hospital, a station hospital, and general. The field hospital was wherever the fighting was when they landed on the beach. And we got some, they were taken care of for emergency. Then they sent them on to Station Hospital, which was ours, and they transferred them to the General Hospital to go back to the States.
Now, how long were you there?
In England,
Yes, in England.
2 years.
Okay.
In fact, we were in the staging area to go over to the Pacific Theater when the end of the war came. So we really celebrated.
I'm sure. How did you celebrate?
Having a drink or two. No, we really did.
That's wonderful.
Everybody was happy.
Now, when you came back from your wartime experience, you went home to Illinois, right?
Right.
Okay. What was it like after you got back? Because after you were older, you had different experiences now. What were some of the things you did when you came back?
Travel around enough knowing where I was going.
Okay.
That's really what it amounted to.
Okay.
My parents were very good about it. If anybody called up and wanted me to make a speech or something, they would have some excuse. And I didn't have to appear.
Okay. Now, how long did you stay at home after that?
Well, I probably stayed home a couple of months. And the roommate I had in the Army was from Minnesota, and she wanted to go to California, so she said, well, let's go. So we went to California. We landed at, what was it? It was north of LA. I can think of the place where they had a hospital, and that's where we worked. She stayed in California and I left. I didn't like it.
Okay.
If I'd have been in San Francisco, I probably would have stayed there. But LA was not a good place. And I was taking care of the Pasadena Playhouse director. And I lived in the Victor Jory home. We looked over the backyard fence and there was a Rose Bowl.
Oh.
That's all in Pasadena. So then I came home and finally decided I couldn't advance my nursing education unless I came to the East Coast, which I was ahead of from New York. And that was it.
Now, what made you come to Stanford?
That's a funny thing. I tried the train station to see where I could locate, where there was a hospital I could work, and there was good transportation into New York, because I wanted to go to NYU, and that's what happened.
You went to NYU on the GI Bill. Okay, so you came to Stanford. Now, how did you get a job here?
I went to the hospital and applied.
The hospital, which one? The Stanford Hospital? Did you find that there was any discrimination in the Stanford Hospital at that time, or any problems with being
And there
hired,
were plenty of problems.
such as a few?
I managed to get around. The one good part was I can still see them today. When I was supervisor of women's ward, and they had beds down both sides of the row. Main aisle was clear. Here comes this nice man, and happy, come to see his patient. And I said, oh, it's my uncle. But it isn't my uncle, I'm in the East Coast. And it was Dr. J. Nemoitin.
So you met him first.
I met him first, and I thought he was great. And then I found out he was.
Great.
So that's it.
Very interesting. Okay, now, you stayed in the hospital nursing. How did you meet your husband, Bernie? Who became your husband?
Well, he being a surgeon, their doctors gave 3 months of free service to patients who need it. And he was on, I don't know which month it was, I don't know. That's how I met him. But that didn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
I still, as far as, I was impressed with his father.
Okay. Now that was what year? 1947, 48?
I came in July 10th, 1947.
And where did you live when you first came? I mean, you didn't know anybody here.
Well, I went back and forth to New York.
Okay. So you lived in New York then?
I worked in New York Hospital for a couple of months, taking some training. And then I knew some people that lived on the East Coast, so it wasn't too bad.
Okay. And when did you and Bernie decide to get serious with each
I
other?
don't know. I really don't. The thing is, our interests were classical music, the theater, sports, and news.
Okay.
And that's how we communicated.
And you got married when?
May 17, 1953.
And you continued to work at the hospital?
No,
No.
I got a job in the office, the
Okay.
Nemoitin
Of the
office.
Nemoitin office. Where was it, do you remember?
96 Main Street.
Okay, and you stayed there for many years. So actually you worked with Bernie, your husband, and Jacob, his father. Okay.
And in the meantime, Bernie had taken a survey of the low-income people in Stanford
Mm-hmm.
because they had no place to go when they got sick, or somebody to take care of them. So he did that survey, and I can't remember who the town clerk was at the time, but they got together, they figured out the cost, the area, all that, and presented it to the Board of Representatives. And they listened. And finally, a lot of work, we got the hospital going.
Mm-hmm.
When I came from, I can't remember which time I was in the hospital, and they sent me to Long Ridge,
Oh, okay.
whatever it is. And that was the worst place in the world.
You mean recent,
And
that was
if I had been
recently.
conscious of what they were doing to me, I probably would have caused a lot of trouble.
That was recently, right.
Because Bernie had been a patient there, and they weren't taking care of him, and he had a urinary problem. So I called his doctor, and his doctor came out and took care of him.
That was
And that's
recently,
why I
in the
hated the
90s.
place.
Okay.
So then I got sick, really sick, you know, and went back to the hospital. They cleared the infection up, and
Then you went to Smith House.
then I went to Smith House. So I pulled a few punches at Smith House
Okay.
when I wanted something, and I had no problem.
Okay.
I wasn't allowed to get a telephone, which I didn't know the reason, but I found out later. And the thing is that I was isolated. The social service couldn't do anything for me. I would request their presence, and they never came.
Mm-hmm.
But they were told not to.
Mm-hmm. But now look where you are. You're happy here, right?
And so when I would get medication early in the morning, go down for exercise, and I'd always get sick. So I said to the head nurse, I'll make a deal with you if you listen. That's what she did. So I said, if you will let me hold off on medication until I come back from from exercise, I will let you know and take the medication, which we worked out and was no problem.
Okay, interesting.
It was a good spot.
Okay, can we just go back a little bit, because I know that you loved working with Dr. Jake and Bernie in the office. Can you tell us a little bit about the practice, how Jake started his practice here, and how when you came in, he had
Well,
someone
I
else there?
ended up, I finally got to Dr. Sidorides, and he became ill, and he was going to quit practice. So he sat down with me and gave me a list of doctors. And one of them was Dr. Israel.
Oh, that's recently.
Yeah, that
Recently.
was, I know, a year or so ago, I guess.
Okay.
But anyway, I walked in to Dr. Israel's office, and the first thing was about Dr. Jake and all he had done.
Okay, so everybody in town knew him and knew his name.
Yeah.
Now, when you worked in his office, your mother-in-law also worked there, or she just stayed away? Bernie's mother.
Oh, she was there upstairs.
Oh, okay. But she didn't work actually in the office.
No,
She
she
just-
sort of
Tell us a little bit
kept
about
tabs
that.
of things.
Tell us a little bit about that.
She knew what was going on. And more stories, I find out more stories about Pop. How he came to Stanford, why he came to Stanford. And he just fit in.
Now, I know that he had some problems when he came here about being admitted to work in the hospital. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
What I know of it was pretty rough. But that was Jake. Bernie had trouble. And I was amazed.
Why did he have
And
trouble?
I started working on a couple of doctors.
Why did Bernie have trouble? I mean, they knew Dr.
Because he
Nemoitin.
was Jewish.
Okay. So how did you ever have any of that directed at you?
I wasn't accustomed to that.
You weren't.
No, you could, in Midwest, you didn't have the same attitude.
Mm-hmm. So how did Bernie overcome that?
By staying in there and keeping going.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't let him.
Did any of the doctors help him or sponsor him in any way?
Well, I know it wasn't Gandhi. I know that for sure. Oh, Dr. Dichter, Charles Dichter, was a very good friend of Pop. I can still see them Friday night. He'd come in. Hurry up, Jake, we're gonna be late, let's get to the movie. And they go to the movie, perfectly happy.
Well, how did he help Bernie become associated with the hospital?
That didn't, Bernie did it on his own,
He did it. Okay.
his own personality, I was interested in.
Okay. When you were married, can you tell us a little bit about your wedding?
It was very interesting.
That was in May 1953.
Yeah, and Rabbi Perlman did the honors. And we signed all the papers and stuff we had to. And we had about 50 people there. It was friends mostly of Bernie from New York. I had met the people anyway. And then Joe and Adele Fine. And Joe had started his practice with Dr. Jake. And then some friends of ours from Pound Ridge. And it was like a party. We just had a good time.
That's wonderful. He once told me that Jake's practice was the first group practice, basically, in Stanford.
Basically, he was because, oh, I can't think of the other doctor.
Well, you did have another doctor with him then.
Was there a
Yeah,
Dr.
there was,
Rose?
there were a couple different
I
doctors.
remember there was a dentist there, Dr. Levinson.
Dr.
Levinson?
The
Oh, the
dentist.
dentist,
Yeah.
he was there
He had a
forever.
office.
He started his practice there, and he died while he was still working.
Mm-hmm.
When he was always wanting Bernie to write prescriptions for him, and Bernie says, "I can't. Do you take aspirin? Stop taking the aspirin." But he didn't do it, and that's what happened to him. And we had one patient that came in, and he was doing bleeding, and Bernie couldn't find any, tried all things. He says, "You have to go up to Yale, New Haven." He went up there, couldn't find anything. And then as he was leaving the hospital, he says, "Oh, I need some aspirin." And then they pulled all the information out from him, and he had been taking aspirin. That's it.
Okay.
Eileen had you had a sibling, a sister?
You had one sister,
Yes,
yes. And she was older than you.
8 years.
Okay. Now, when you came here, was Bernie active in politics as yet? Did you become active with him?
I stayed in the background.
Because I know you're
When
interested
the
in
teachers
politics.
had, I can say it now, when the teachers had their first strike, Bernie was president of the board. And he listened. I don't know how many people listened to him, but he did. And there's one teacher who had some activity with the strike. And years later, this individual was a member of the Stanford Historical Society. And he wrote a very nice letter thanking Bernie for being polite about it, all that sort of stuff. So they did listen.
What were some of the things that you and Bernie both did in Stanford, for Stanford? Because I know that you were active with veterinaries, with the, you know.
Oh, I worked we got a standard Schnauzer puppy. And he was going to grow up to be the guard dog, which he was. He wasn't vicious. He just let everybody know that I'm here in charge and don't bother us. That type of thing. Then we got started in Brady.
His name
We
was
got
what?
started in working at dog shows. Bernie became a member of the, I guess it was headquarters for the,
Yeah.
It was just one of those things that snowballed into something.
You became a judge, didn't you, at the Westminster Club?
No, we worked at the Westminster. No, I didn't want to judge. Bernie at that time was not feeling well enough to do that. He started at Westminster.
Okay, tell us a little bit about your breed, the Schnauzers, and how.
The standard Schnauzer and the wire-haired ducks. Two German breeds, and I was not happy with Germany at all. I wouldn't even mention that I was.
Part German. No.
My parents understood.
How about Mazel?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about Mazel, Bernie's, the dog Mazel, Nemoitin's Mazel.
Champion Nemo's Mazel.
Right, right.
The standards.
Did he win best of breed at the Westminster?
Westminster was best of breed. He was national champion 2 different times. And that can be a rough deal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were about the first of the Jewish
Greeters.
people, I guess, that joined. So everybody knew us, and we were attending one dog show, and we had several dogs, and they put them on benches, as they called them, and then they would have the dog name tacked on the back of the crate. And somebody came along, I was standing there, and all of a sudden I hear them, "Look at all those Jewish dogs." Well, it did. They all were Jewish names,
Such as?
so it worked.
Well, I know one of them was Nemo's Mazel. What was
Nemo's
some of the
Mazel was the
others?
first one. We couldn't decide what to call them, so we just go, let's hope we have good luck. And that was it.
Okay.
Now, Mrs. Nemoitin, Dr. Jacob Nemoitin's wife, her first name escapes me at the moment.
Francis.
Francis. Used to like to talk German with
With your mother.
your
Oh,
mother.
the two mothers got together whenever, this was, before we were married. They started.
Okay, so that was about 1953.
And after that, when my folks came to visit, then they would come out and we'd have a dinner in the backyard or something.
Okay.
We'd have the dog. And of course, all my father had to do was raise his hand, and the dog knew him.
He was like a dog whisperer.
Yeah.
Yeah, see?
But my father just liked animals.
That's wonderful. And they must have liked him. You know, this is a question that I'd like to know about a little bit. You once told me that you went to a synagogue in Illinois.
Oh, yeah.
Did you practice Judaism then, or did that come along later after you met Bernie?
Well, I was working on that before Bernie.
Okay. What made you interested in it?
Well, going to Sunday school, and I'd hear something about Israel and something about Jews, and the ears came out. And my father said, it's up to you to choose what you want. Of course, didn't make my mother very happy, so I had to work around. But my father was all right. And then once in a while, he became a 32nd degree Mason. He was active in Masonic activities. Now he's helping somebody. And I was going to go work in a shrine hospital when I finished training, but then it was the war and everything just went the wrong direction.
So you didn't have any problem then when you got married to Bernie having the rabbi marry you?
Well, for that, I didn't pay any attention to him. I was from the Midwest, and they're very stubborn people.
I know that. I know, but you and Bernie did a lot of traveling, and you went to Israel a few times. Can you tell us a little bit about your trips and how you enjoyed
The first
going
trip
around?
was 1969, after what was it,
the establishment, Six-Day War?
67 war.
Right, the 67 War.
67 war, yeah. And Rabbi Aaron Krantz went over. And I don't know how we made connection with him, but we did. And whenever he went over, we were there to go. Who was it,
Prime Minister?
I think the one who was assassinated.
Rabin.
Yeah. We were supposed to have met him and had a conversation with him. Well, that was impossible because he was killed before that. But we always had interesting things. But I can still see going from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and what barren land, you looked out in the sea, flat land, nothing. And that's when we knew this lady that raised Canaan dogs. So we stopped and said, we got a Canaan dog, we got 2 of them, and that one was a big one. But that was the closest to the forum, I guess you'd call it, breeding. And they were strange. Now they're accepted by the AKC.
Okay.
At that time, no, it was
They weren't.
working. Now every breed is accepted by the AKC, which is wrong.
You also went to Australia and to Africa with Bernie. What was it like traveling with him?
With Bernie?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was no problem. We got along fine. We had the music, we had art, and the zoo.
In the zoo. Okay.
For us all. Russia was a little bit different. You didn't feel comfortable having conversations in your room.
Okay.
We had said very little. The thing that bothered me the most was you'd see these fountains, and there's several glasses around there. Everybody could use them. You rinse them off a little bit and then use them. Well, that bothered me. So we didn't do that.
That was in Moscow. Was that in Moscow with the
Uh,
fountains?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
most of them, yeah. And this friend of ours was the head veterinarian for the Zoological Society in New York. Wanted to ask Bernie if he would find out something about the white tigers.
Mhm.
So we went out to the zoo, and the veterinarian didn't speak English, and of course Bernie didn't speak Russian, but the 2 of them communicated on German.
Oh.
And so all of a sudden I look up and see a trail of people going around the cages, and all of a sudden I see he was being shown around there, and I guess everybody thought he was pretty important because of the veterinarian. But that's, and on the way out there, we got the trolley, and all the seats were taken, and when they saw Bernie with gray hair, got the seat. I says, that's no fair.
They stood up so Bernie could sit down. Okay. Yeah.
And China was good. Went to China.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about that.
And
That
we
was-
went to New Zealand and Australia twice, different ways, different sections. And Africa twice, different sections. Egypt.
Oh, you did
I
go to
wouldn't want
Egypt.
to go over there now. Wouldn't trust it.
When you came here to the Atria, did you find that you liked it here, or
I knew this place.
you did?
I'd been here before with, I don't know who it was, but someone had been here. And I knew what the reputations of the others were, so that was it.
Okay, is there anything you would like to say that I haven't asked you about?
But you've been active in the Jewish Historical Society since the 1990s, and you and Bernie were on the board?
On the board, right? And active in the archives.
Yes.
We have a lot of your things in the archives, actually.
Well, I met some good friends in the society, which made a difference. There was, at least you had one place you could go and you could be comfortable. You wouldn't have to worry. And you could learn a lot. I learned a lot through my father-in-law,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
because I thought there was nobody like him.
Dr.
And
J.
still, Dr. Israel like him. the last visit we had with her, for some reason or other, I think she's a member of
Young Israel.
the synagogue there. But anyway, she said she was at services, and she says, I looked up and there was Dr. Jacob Nemoitin. Whatever he says, that's fine.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to say?
I don't think so.
Okay. Is Stanford better now, or was it better when you first came here?
That's a good question.
It is loaded, but you can give me an honest answer.
Your opinion.
My honest answer is I don't like it.
Why?
I don't like the way that it's being built up. I don't like Trump Towers where it is. And I know what the method was to get it here. No, there's a lot about politics.
Well, now when you first came here, you once told me that you used to walk from the railroad station. Can you tell us a little
I
bit about
could
that?
walk from the hospital to the railroad station, go to class, come back about 9:30 at night, walk back to the hospital and not see anyone.
Those are the
So
days.
I never had any difficulty that way.
Okay, that's very interesting. Okay, just let's hold this up so that they will know today is November 29th, 2011, and your name is Elieen Nemoitin.
Is it Hallstein?
I just said that, I didn't write it,
Oh, okay.
okay?
Well, they are.
Okay.
I don't know where that came from.
Homer Holstein.
Name?
His name was Homer Hallstein,
Oh,
and he was born when? Do you know his birth date?
October 17th.
Okay.
He was 81 when he died of a heart attack.
Okay, but you don't know what year he was born.
I think it was 1888.
Must have been
1888.
88 or something.
1888. Okay,
Somewhere in that territory.
okay. That's a beautiful picture.
Oh, I think it's
Yes.
great.
Yes.